The good news is most everyone on this call knows at this time who Ben Newman is. Ben's a mindset coach. He works with Alabama football, works with some of the best NFL players, works with UFC fighters, Pepsi, some of the military guys. And you just is it the third or fourth time got named the top 50 speaker in the world?
It's the fourth time, but no more bios because you know what? We're all friends here. We've been doing this for these calls now. So let's just have some fun and let's talk about the next level,
Let's go.
Any thoughts from you to get going, Brett? I'd love to just hear maybe thoughts.
We talked about a
little
bit. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit the other day. People are super strong at the beginning of the year, planning out, mapping out what's going to happen, how big it's going to be. People start strong and they end strong, but it's the whole damn time in the middle where people seem to get confused and bump their heads and give themselves participation trophies. And we need to get out of that business. Going into Q2, we have to go in strong. We have to dive in head first, and we have to be consistent. We have to be disciplined above all else. One guy to highlight real quick on this call, I see him, Brian Pintar. Brian and I are dear friends. I believe Brian's probably lost about 50 pounds recently, which is amazing. And that's all done by discipline, right? So it's those little daily actions that we all talk about that are going to propel us to that next level. What do you think, Mr. Ben?
Yeah, I'm just taking a note because I'm going to send something with a follow up from something that you just said. And Brian, just corrected pounds. You. It's 66 pounds that he's lost. Brian, that is absolutely amazing. And it takes discipline in order to do something like that. One of the things that I plan on doing today, if we have brand new friends here on the call. Please don't take this as harassment, but I'm going to kind of take the next step in our relationship to dive a little bit deeper with all of you and be just direct in a kind, loving way, like I always am. But we've been doing this, and we got to make sure if we're going to keep doing this together, that we're not dancing around and coddling each other, and we're having real conversations. And so for those of you that are new, don't take it as harassment. You're like, who is this guy that Brett invited us to spend time with? I want you to realize I'll always come from a position of care and me really wanting to just have the opportunity to help take your thinking to the next level, regardless of the economy, regardless of the environment, regardless of interest rates, in order to help you realize that it's your decisions and choices that are going to cause you to get results. It's going to be your decisions and choices that's going to create impact in the work that you do every single day. And we all know it. There are success stories in the industry right now. There's plenty of success stories. There are plenty of stories of people who are challenged. I would submit to you from the amount of work that I do in your industry that there's a commonality of the people who are experiencing challenge. They lack discipline at a very high level right now. And I'm not here to call anybody out. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands or to nod your heads, but each and every single one of you, if you're disappointed about where you are right now, if we're honest with ourselves, you probably don't have the same level of discipline that you once had when you were closing enough business over text message 2 years ago that you didn't have to pick up the phone, right? Like, what discipline did that take? I mean, it was like easy. And so we have to remember that the way you created that opportunity for your phone to get text messages to close deals a couple of years ago was at some point in time, each and every single one of you started in this business. And when you started in this business, there were disciplines, there were things that you were taught, there were things that you learned from high performers in the industry. And you were like, gosh, if I do that, I can be successful too. And each and every single one of you, you've experienced that success. Some of you, even with what's going on, you're experiencing that right now. And some of you feel very challenged right now. And some of you realize, okay, now I'm finally building momentum. I'm navigating my way through what's going on. I'm doing some things that I once did when I was getting started, and I can feel the momentum and pipeline building again. But you have to be disciplined. Brian, I'm going to use you as an example as well. 66 pounds, that came because you have like zero discipline, right? I mean, you just eat whatever you want. You never work out. It's like an extreme lack of discipline. Isn't that how you lost the 66 pounds? Go ahead and unmute for me. Let's have some fun with this one.
Yeah, I just, I'll be honest, I was always very disciplined. And during COVID, when things got easy and you lose your morning routine, like my morning routine's everything to me. you fire your therapist, and then the market shifts that quickly. Well, during COVID, I haven't lost on my weight yet. I put on about 90 pounds during COVID. So I'm down 66, gonna lose it all, then some. But COVID was so easy that everything was easy. You didn't have to have any discipline. And to me, it affects you in all areas. So coming back now, I mean, the weight loss, yeah, it's all the exercise and that, but it's also getting up at 4:30 and meditating and doing your gratitude journals and, seeing I have a therapist, I see my therapist. And, I think the disciplines all created what we do first thing in the morning. I quit drinking. As a lot of the guys on this call can tell you, like, Tito's is my favorite thing in the entire world. My best
stockholder.
And honestly, so in a lot of stuff, I went through a divorce a couple of summers ago. I paid $28,000 a month in alimony, which is hard to do, and the mortgage business is going away. So just creates a lot of stress and not going away, just, it was down. And so I just think that what can I control? I can't control interest rates. I can't control the market. I can't control real estate agents, but I can control my health. I can control my mind, and hopefully everything else falls into place. And I did lean on Brett quite a bit. Brett's helped me out a lot.
Brett's amazing, in terms of friendship when it comes to things like that. I can attest. Go ahead.
Oh, I would say Brett and I used to, like, when I talk about Tito's and stuff, Brett and I would go out and and some of the other guys on the call, like Greg Shear and Silverman, like you said, we've had some really, really good times, but it's to change all that I was talking about it to a friend this morning, and for the first time in my entire life, outside when I was wrestling in college and wrestling at the Olympic Training Center when I was really disciplined, but for the first time in my life, in the last 3 months, I figured out the person I want to become and working towards that, and it feels good. And it's all discipline. It really, really, truly is. And that's what we were talking about this morning. And it's not easy, right? But when you look back at it, like I look back at wrestling, when I wrestled at such a high level, it was hard, but at the same time, it's the most disciplined I've ever been in my life. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but I look back at it now and I'm like, that was the happiest I ever was. And I knew I was the best person I could be. And I knew I was better than everybody else. And, so I'm getting back to that. And it's just it's a journey, but I'm, as hard as things are financially and work-wise, I'm the happiest I've probably been in a long time.
Amazing.
So.
Brian, thank you for being an example, but thank you for your extreme honesty. I really appreciate it because, we all have things that we struggle with. I share this every month. I still have 2 coaches. I read books every day. I've got a brand new therapist that I'm starting with. I cannot wait to start with her. She's going to be amazing. I call Brett and cry, at least a couple of times a week too.
Every time he has a tummy ache.
It's one of those things, we're all battling the self-talk of are we going to not be disciplined, right? Or are we going to be disciplined? And, I think sometimes people see, the work that I do and they think, oh, he doesn't have any self-talk. Of course I do. But I think, Brian, one of the things you've realized, and I've realized this over time, I get to control my mindset. I get to control my disciplines. I get to control how I show up. And you mentioned a couple of things that I think are awesome. Brian didn't just say, I eat right and I work out. He literally said, affirmations and reading in the morning and morning routine and a series of things that Brian has identified. When I do those things, I feel good about myself. And I'm actually having to pull some of what I was going to talk about later into right now. And so I love this, Brian, is that those are standards that you've now created. The next book that I'm writing is called The Standard, and it's going to be released on August the 1st. And, we get accustomed to, we watch a game these days and, the head coach after the game is like, the standard is the standard, or we hear a leader talk and there's buzzwords and it's like the standard, but nobody helps anybody understand, like, what does that mean? Like, what does the standard actually mean? And Brian just gave for all of you a clear-cut example of why I'm writing this book, The Standard, because we all know what we need to do. And when we do those things and we live to those standards, we feel stronger. We feel better. We feel like we can navigate an environment like this. I greatly appreciate your authenticity. not only navigate this sort of an economy in this industry, but you still have to pay the alimony regardless of what interest rates are. You know, there's no gap where the judge goes, no alimony for the next 6 months because interest rates are at 8%. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And so the reality is we get to choose the discipline. So Brian, thank you for setting a standard of what it means to have standards. And I think it's one of the things, you know, I do my very best to do, even though I say I'm going to be tough on you. I do it with a loving big smile on my face. But I've been encouraging you on each and every single one of these calls, connect to your burn. Right? Connect to that underlying fire that lies inside of you that ignites your why and your purpose and causes you to be disciplined when you don't want to do it, but also after you win. And I've also encouraged all of you to live to your prize fighter days, right? And I'm going to send the videos again to Katie, along with an interview that I made note of that I'm going to send as a follow-up. If you haven't watched it yet, that's on you. I can't make you watch these things. But I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I'm not Brett's friend from Instagram who became a coach 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, Brett, give me a shot here, man. Like, let me get on here. Let me show him my stuff. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I've had the blessing of working with some of the highest performers to ever walk the face of the earth. And I've recognized that those performers have adapted to one thing that I talk about that nobody else in the world talks about. It's the burn. Everybody talks about why and purpose, everybody, but nobody talks about the burn, which is what you actually need to ignite that why and purpose. And so when I share these videos, one of the fears I always have is that many people watching, because Brett is taking care of this for you, which means essentially what? It's free for you to join this call. Well, it's not free for Brett. So you look at it and there's no cost, and then it's okay, we'll get juiced up. This guy's a motivational speaker and he's going to get us fired up. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm a coach. So if we've had these sessions together thus far and all you've done is showed up to get juiced up and motivated, but you haven't watched the burn videos yet, you haven't decided to connect to your burn, you haven't decided to build out a prize fighter day, and I don't care what you call it, but to build those disciplines, then I don't care if you're paying me or if it's free, I'm doing a disservice to you and I'm not doing something right. And so I'm just encouraging you to take advantage of all these things that I've seen of almost 20 years of doing this, some of the highest performers to ever walk the face of the earth. This is how winning is done. And now you've heard an example from Brian. You take a look at Brett. I mean, he should send along with my videos, I want him to send, I'm going to make him be transparent. He sent a picture to me the other day and he's like, dude, this was me like a year ago. I'm like, no way. Like, that was not a year ago.
Like
and
September.
it literally, that picture is the proof of the discipline that Brett is now living with. And is Brett doing the production that he once did in the industry? No, he's not. But is he doing more than he believed he would when he and I were on the phone? He's like, oh shit, man, I see this thing going like this. Yes, he is accomplishing more. And it's because he's choosing to be disciplined. And it's because he believes that in any economy, because of all the partnerships and great relationships and friendships that he has with so many of you over all these years, damn near 20 years for him in this industry, that he can fight and help you and you can help him and you all can help each other, but you have to be disciplined. And I promise you, if you connect to the burn every day, it's going to change your life. If you connect to living a life of discipline and doing the things that make you feel good, listen to Brian, it's going to change your life. I can't do the work for you. I wish I could. You know I would. I hope you felt my heart and my passion for the work that I do from our time together. But you have to choose it for yourself. And so today, because this is where I wanted to go, I wanted to be very intentional with something that Brett and I have been talking a lot about here recently, and he touched on it to kick things off. You know, everybody talks about the first quarter. Oh, we got to get off to this fast start. Everybody talks about finishing the year strong. But one of the things I've always noticed in the coaching work that I do is nobody talks about the second quarter. So a lot of times, even when rates are down, right? So rates are low. You have an amazing first quarter. What do? Unplanned vacation to Mexico because I had a great first quarter, right? Unplanned vacation. It wasn't even planned, but I'm going to Mexico to celebrate what I just did. And then you throw yourself off for a month, and then it takes forever to get your pipeline back up. And then you're like, man, what happened in the second quarter? You got seduced by success, which Brian alluded to. You got seduced by success, and then we averaged the first quarter and the second quarter, and it's just kind of average. Why did that happen? Because nobody pays attention to the second quarter. And I know some of you are probably saying, nice example, but like, don't you realize how tough things are right now? I do, which actually means second quarter is even more important. Because if first quarter wasn't the way you intended it to be, you have to double down on the intentional focus to make second quarter your best quarter. This second quarter has got to be the foundation where you say, no excuses. I'm not going to settle. I don't care how many deals I do. Every day, one day at a time, I'm going to show up more relentlessly than I ever have, and I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. Because that I owe it to myself to fight through this period of time, because I'm one of the individuals who stayed. But you can't just stay and wait. You got to stay and you got to lean in to the opportunity to be your best right now. And as Brett can attest to, it might not be where production once was, but when you actually do the work and you show up and you pay attention to the details in all areas of your life, you can succeed, have an impact, and have a business that is making a difference during these times with interest rates where they are. One final thing before I really dive into some research behind this, which I was very, very excited to share with all of you. Some of you maybe have heard me in the past talk about when I was in college, I ran a branch of a telemarketing center for a mortgage company. It's called Washington Mortgage. And I'll never forget my buddy Griff Hawk, one of my fraternity brothers, he comes into the house one day and he's like, guys, who wants a job? Who wants a job? And I was always one of those kids. I was working from 13 years old. I mean, my first job was $3.25 an hour selling hot dogs at the Jewish Community Center snack bar. And Brett can attest to, I mean, you got some people complaining at that pool. I mean, the hot dogs were never hot enough. The mustard was never enough. The relish wasn't right. And so, hey, I can make those jokes. And so right. All of a sudden, right, that's where I learned to cut my teeth, you know, in terms of sales. And so I always had to have a job, busboy, waiter. So like, I believe in grit. I believe in perseverance. I believe in doing what it takes to get it done. And so he comes into the fraternity house like, who wants to join Washington Mortgage Company? Here's what we do. We pick up the phone, we hammer the phones. And I'm not talking about cell phones. I'm talking about old school rotary phones that'll make your fingers bleed when you dial enough. Some of you remember those phones. And he's like, come on in, you're going to check this out. It was almost like the boiler room. And we go in and I fell in love with what we were doing. We were calling at the perfect time. It was typically between 5:30 and 8:30, right in the middle of people's dinner, right? It was perfect. So you're cold calling people during the dinner hour to ask them to refinance their homes. I was doing pre-qualification calls and I loved it. Yeah, there were times that I got hung up on, but I was like, man, this is crazy. I could create language on the phone right now where people will get up from their dinner, talk to me, tell me what their interest rate is on their home, tell me what their second rate interest rate is. We could talk about their loan to value. We could talk about how we can do better. We could tell them how Washington Mortgage is going to help them. Then they're going to give me their social security number, all while they got up from dinner. This is crazy. And I fell in love with it. And in 13 weeks, I was promoted to running the entire telemarketing center because nobody had seen somebody get more pre-qualifications than me. Now, none of you get excited. I'm pretty damn good on the phones in your guys' industry. I'm very happy with my current employment situation, being self-employed. But I was damn good on those phones. But I fell in love with the process of just attacking. And I loved it. And interest rates were in the 8s. How about that? This was 2001 and interest rates were in the 8s. Guys, it's all I knew. And so for those of you that have been in the business for a long time, rates right now aren't the highest you've ever seen them. Baird?
Nah.
Right? So there have been periods, but it's your perspective. So if all I knew was I'm going to pick up the phone and get this pre-qualification to help this person on the other line, what was I comparing it to? I was comparing it to nothing. I was comparing it to, I have a desire to want to help this person. And so I end up running the telemarketing center. Now I'm hiring my girlfriend. I'm hiring the fraternity brothers. We load this thing up. We did so well. They gave us a brand new office. So I'm a junior in college helping to negotiate a brand new office lease. All we did was put long picnic tables in this thing. They gave me this nice little office and we put these phones on all these tables and we just hammered the phones with 8% interest rates. But right now, because of some of you have had a taste of what it's like to get those text messages and to ring the charts and to make things go crazy, and it's easier to sell homes, it's easier to make this happen. Real estate, mortgage, everything in the industry is easier when you're doing all your business via text message reply. We forget that, hey, the discipline I alluded to earlier that made you great then to create the relationships you had for them to reach out to you and make it easy over text, those are the same relationships and skills that it takes to do it right now. So don't compare it to what it once was. Compare it to how bad you want it right now. I wanted it bad back then. The interest rates didn't matter. Your self-talk is way too high right now. So you're comparing it to what it once was. If you wake up every day saying, I wish that it was the way that it once was, you think God's going to call the bank and drop interest rates for you? Ain't happening. So the interest rates are going to drop whenever the interest rates are going to drop. But I just want to encourage you to do the little things with great discipline that are going to make you feel good. Just like when Brett gets a workout in, when Brett comes in and does the things that he and I have talked about that he has to do every day, makes him feel good. Brian mentioned all the things that make him feel good. We brought Silverman on to talk about examples, right? You hear examples of how he runs his business. You do the things that make you feel good. What happens? Grow a great business and have big impact. And so today I wanted to share with you, now that we've kind of painted this picture, that I've been there, I know it. Rates are higher than you want them to be, but shift your perspective. Just get back to the good old-fashioned work to when you once started, with great discipline and a desire to do what it takes. When you do that, you release dopamine in your brain. When you release dopamine in your brain, you feel good. It creates positive energy, and then you create a desire to want to do more of the things that make you feel good. So I recently listened to this podcast with Andrew Huberman. If you guys don't know who Andrew Huberman is, this guy is an absolute stud. He's one of the foremost leading experts on the study of the brain. He's a professor at Stanford University. You guys don't even have to look it up. I'm going to send you the link. I'm going to send it to Katie. We're going to get it out to everybody that's joining. It's a podcast with Rich Roll. It's like over 2 hours long. I don't listen to 2-hour podcasts. I don't. And this thing, I could not stop listening to this podcast. It was amazing. And it's all about hacking your brain and doing the little things that cause positive responses so that you desire to create more discipline to keep doing the little things. Many of you right now, you're waiting for something big to happen to remove the pain in your life. It isn't going to happen that way. Just like Brian wasn't going to lose 90 pounds by just praying that it's all going to happen in one big swoop. It's taken disciplines to get to 66. And with what he just explained, there's no doubt in my mind, here probably in a quarter or maybe in 2 quarters, we're going to be on here and he's going to say, now it's over 100. I believe that because I know what discipline does. And so this Huberman podcast is fascinating. Coach Tucker up at Michigan State, the head football coach, he and I are very, very close. And so he called me 3 weeks ago and he's like, you've got to listen to this podcast. Like, no excuses. Listen to the podcast. You got to tell me what you think. And so I literally start listening to this podcast. Took me a couple workouts to get through it. What I like to do, I create note sections on my phone, right? So I'm working out, I'm listening. And then when I hear something that gets you, right, that makes a difference, I'm not listening just to listen. Just like I'm going to encourage all of you, if you've been showing up to these calls just for motivation, just to listen, this isn't going to work. But like when I send you the burn video, please watch it. When I send you the prize fighter day video again, please watch it. If something resonates with you that I'm going to share from Dr. Huberman today, please do something with it. Don't just hear it and think that that's going to cause you to get results in your life. And so I listen, I take the notes, and then what I do, I'm very methodical. I print out the notes, and then I highlight the parts of the notes that I think are amazing. So I literally take these notes. I couldn't stop listening. I then send them to Coach Tucker. I'm like, this is the most amazing podcast ever. And so even though I want you to listen to the podcast, here's what I would like to do. I'd like to share some of my takeaways because I think what it's going to do, it's really going to highlight this concept of it can't just be the first quarter. It's not just finishing strong. And yes, second quarter is important, but it's not just second quarter. It's understanding that when you do the things you know you need to do every day with great discipline, you're going to feel good and you're going to win more. And you all know, for new friends, let me just share it one more time. My definition of winning is not championship rings and more money that you make. My definition of winning is your ability to look yourself in the mirror and say, today I gave it my very best. And I'm not talking about a fake, I gave it my best. I'm talking about a relentless pursuit. You look in the mirror and you said, I did what I said I was going to do today. And when you live a life that way to the standards that you know it takes for you to win, and you stack those days, you will win in life at everything that you do at very high levels. And that's what this research solidifies. He says, obstacles you overcome and manage build strength and expose your real focus. I'm going to read that again, and then we're going to unpack it for what you're currently going through. Obstacles that you overcome and manage build strength and expose your real focus. You really didn't need real focus. I'm going to keep using this example, right? 2 years ago, when you're closing deals over text message, you didn't need any focus. What focus did you need, right? You were lucky. You were literally like, you struck gold in the business. That's called luck. That has nothing to do with focus, and that wasn't hard work. You generated a lot of business, but it was luck. Obstacles you overcome and manage build strength and expose your real focus. So what if I shared with you the pain you're currently going through, you have to go through to figure out what your real strengths are and how focused you can be, so that not only during this period of time when rates are high, you can drive success, but the next time that rates go low, you will not be seduced by success again. And for those who say, this is great, I closed 3 deals, I'm going to go to the golf course, you say, I'm going to attack, I will be relentless, and I will honor my commitment to the time frame I set for when I'm going to work until I am done, regardless of how much I sell. With that kind of focus, you would do way more. If you knew that now, that you had that strength, you would have done more 2 years ago. We can't go back and change it, but you can change your behaviors right now and change what's in the future. He then asks a question. What does your story tell you about you? What does your story tell you about you? Okay, so once again, I said I was going to challenge you guys today because you can handle it. This is not for coddling. I know my style of coaching is not for everybody, but I work with high performers, period. You all have that in you. You're either going to choose to get there or not. So some of you, you might find it abrasive. I always say that when the vein starts popping out of my neck, it's love, it's passion. I'm not yelling at anybody. I'm just encouraging you to be your best. But the reality is, some of you, when you say, what does your story tell you about you? You're really disappointed in how you've been showing up. And if we're honest, it's like, okay, I've been on these calls with Ben. He really keeps talking about the same things. He's painting them in a different picture, and there's different examples based upon where we are and specifics of what's going on in the industry. But why do I keep doing this to myself? What does your story tell you about you? And at some point in time, just like, I'm going to keep going back to Brian because it's such an amazing example. Brian says, I don't like that story. I'm changing that story. And you know what? The little people in my life whose little eyes are watching me and the people that I'm an example for, I don't want them remembering that story. I'm changing the story. And so I encourage you, pay attention to your story. What does it tell you about you? And I'm fine. If you guys have missed the mark over the first 6 months of us doing this, it is what it is. But don't miss the mark going forward. That's on you. He goes on to say that the brain constantly brings in different sensations, but you only think about them when you focus on it. This I found to be pretty fascinating. Case in point, that's a little bit different when you're on Zooms, and Brett probably isn't wearing shoes, but most of you probably have shoes on. And so right now, all of you, your feet have been, Brian doesn't have shoes on. So all of your feet. So for those of you that have had shoes on, or if your feet are touching the floor, okay, all of you, your feet have been inside of your shoes our entire time together. Or your feet have been touching the floor like Brian's bare feet this entire time, the whole time. Yet nobody was thinking about how your feet feel inside of your shoes. But when I say, hey, Brian, how do those bare feet feel on that floor? When I say, hey, Baird, man, touch your toes to the inside of your shoe. Now you actually feel your shoe. The damn shoe was there the whole time. And so if you pick up the phone and you just dial to tell somebody that you dialed because it's really hard, but you don't really want to dial, and you have no focus in dialing, it's the same thing as you having no awareness that your damn shoes are on your feet. But when I say, can you feel your feet inside your shoes? Yes, my toes, they're at the top. I actually need new shoes. These are uncomfortable. Right now, I feel it. That is focus. That's the type of focus. If you're going to make this second quarter your best quarter, that's the type of focus where for you, if you're going to make it through this challenging time, you have to have that kind of focus. So you may not want to on most days, but if you're going to show up and do it, be focused, be intentional, pay attention to your words. Because when things were better and interest rates were low, I know you were paying attention to your words. I know you figured out exactly the language that you needed to say, and you said it over and over and over again on repeat. I could see you all right now with those text messages. Man, this one converted unbelievable. Cut and paste, bang, cut and paste, bang, cut and paste, bang. You all did it. So why have we lost our focus? Focus, intentional focus. What that does, it helps you live to those standards. Breathing and focus are used to bring awareness to your internal state. That actually positions you into what they call a high state of mind. If you have a high state of mind and clarity on your standard and the things you need to do, what's your performance going to look like? Well, if you hammer that standard, last time I checked, what you do is a numbers game. The math might be a little more difficult right now, but nobody's going to contact 1,000 people. I don't care if you have the worst language I've ever heard in my life. If you contact 1,000 people, you will not go 0 for 1,000. Unless you're the person who's on the sideline, who's been showing up to the office saying, I'm showing up every day, but you're actually not dialing the phone. Then you are going to go 0 for 1,000. But if you actually have focus and intention, and you're careful with your words and aware of what you say, and you're targeting the right markets and doing things that are strategic, you can win even with interest rates where they are right now. He then goes on to talk about neuroplasticity. It's all about steering the nervous system. You have control of your mindset. Brian now realizes I lost control of my mindset. I went through personal adversity. I went through adversity here. I went through adversity there. I felt like I was in a 24-hour fight with Muhammad Ali. I was losing control of look at his smile. Guys, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've lost control of my nervous system and my ability to remember that I control the decisions that I make. I control those. He grabbed control again. It's the brain's ability to modify itself based upon experience. It's triggered by intense focus. When I'm intensely focused and I do the things I know I need to do, it feels good, it releases dopamine, and then I have a desire to want to do more of that. Guys, it's all science. But once you understand that it's all science, and once you understand the brain works, Brett can't do the work for you. Katie can't do the work for you. Belen can't do the work for you. Silverman can't do the work for you. You have to choose to do it yourself. And when you do that, let me read his thoughts on dopamine. Dopamine puts you on the right path. The main role is for it to be released when you achieve an outcome or you feel you are on the right path. Okay, now we all feel like when we get that outcome, that feels good. We want more of that. But listen to the second part. Or you feel you are on the right path. When you do the little things and follow through with the disciplines that you know create opportunity on a pipeline, that feels good and you desire to do more of it. You don't have to close the loan. It's just somebody saying, yes, I'm interested in coming to your first-time home buyers program. I can't wait to see you in 2 weeks. That feels good. Even if you don't get the confirmation they want to be in the seat, you contact somebody and said, I didn't even know this existed. I love the fact that you're doing this. Do you mind following up with me in 2 days if the seats are still available? That feels good because you took the action to create opportunity. I'm going to read this again. Dopamine puts you on the right path. Guys, these aren't my thoughts. I'm reading this direct from Huberman. This is one of the top scientists on the study of the brain in the world today, Stanford University. Dopamine puts you on the right path. The main role is for it to be released when you achieve an outcome or you feel you are on the right path. Small wins trigger more dopamine and more focus. Small wins trigger more dopamine and more focus. Here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to read you one more thing from this, and then I want to open this up for questions. I see everybody locked in. I see everybody focused. You guys probably, your brains are racing when you hear things like this. Until we can regulate ourselves, we can never get to where we want to get to. I'm going to read that again. Until we can regulate ourselves, we can never get to where we need to get to. So, and said another way, until you decide, I'm not just going to show up to these calls just to show up and say I was present. I'm actually going to take action. I'm going to take Ben's advice. I'm just going to try it for 7 days and see how it feels. I'm going to look myself in the mirror one day at a time, no bullshit, no excuses, ruthless accountability. And I'm going to look at myself at the end of the day and say, did I do what I was supposed to do today? And that's what I want you to try. That's the action step. I'm not asking much. Because if you've been showing up to these calls and you haven't been connecting to your burn, I've heard so many different athletes, entrepreneurs, some of the fastest growing companies in the world I've been able to work with, Fortune 10 companies I've been able to work with. They didn't call it the burn, but I've been able to discover in our research of almost 20 years, everybody calls it something different. Some people just say, oh my gosh, there's this feeling in my belly, and like I have to act on that feeling. That's the burn. And when you connect to that first, that deep rooted desire, or you're making a sacrifice for somebody, or somebody sacrificed for you and you're not going to waste their sacrifice, or it's the perspective of pain like I've been through, you connect to that burn, that then ignites your why and your purpose. And that, I said it earlier, is when you choose to be disciplined when you don't feel like it, and you choose to be disciplined after you win. That is self-regulation. And if you want it bad enough, and you believe what I believe, that this second quarter is going to be the difference by taking it one day at a time.
Yeah.
And please don't just show up. We got to take the action. Brett, I'm going to turn it over to you to lead some Q&A. And then I do have something that I want to finish with to make sure that that we tighten the time right, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And you highlighted a lot of humor in that whole section there. I love him. He's amazing. But the other guy, it's funny, Rich Roll. Someone gave me a book when I attempted to run my first marathon, and I got inspired years ago, and it's been sitting there. I had this much dust on it. And about 3 weeks ago, I took it off the shelf. It's called Finding Ultra by Rich Roll. And at 36 years old, Rich Roll was a fat junkie. At 41 years old, Rich Roll was just a fat. And at 42 years old, Rich Roll won a double Ironman in Hawaii. So it's an Ironman twice, all in one sitting. He did it within 13 months of, he said he has 16 steps in his home, and he was walking up to tuck his kids up. And on the 8th step, he thought he was going to have a damn heart attack. So I've been doing a lot of research on this guy. I actually have a couple of buddies that have been on his podcast. Look him up. It's pretty amazing. And it just goes to show you there's no one that's too damn young on this call, and there's no one that's too damn old on this call to turn things around. If that's what you want to do, and you want to get fit, you want to, tighten up your business, whatever you want to do, there's no limit to it. Brian, how old are you? 41?
50.
Are you 50? 50,
Yeah.
66 pounds at 50 years old.
I'm younger than
So
some.
it's unbelievable. Like, we all got all these excuses, right? Now's the goddamn time to do it, especially like you said, going into Q2. So Q&A. Last time Belen was on, I think her mic wasn't working, so I'm going to shoot straight to Belen, and we'll hit her first.
Okay, so the first thing, thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. It's just changing me, not just in my personal perspective and way to see things, but as a mom, single mom of 2 kids, it's just been helping me just not to be a victim or have that victim mentality anymore and start doing things, right? One of the first things that I did was to create a model for my business and start actually implementing action and break my own records, right? So I really appreciate it. And more than anything, Brett, thank you so much for pushing me so hard and helping me to accomplish little by little all these things, right? So I thought it was going to take me 5 years. So we're now on the second year when we talk and decide to do like all these big things. So it's amazing, all the things that I'm accomplishing, but putting action to it. So that's one of the first things. So my biggest thing and question to you, Ben, is how do you stay in the state of mind with discipline? Because that's what I struggle the most, even though I do every single day. I show up to the office. I try to do, but in my personal perspective, working out every single day is taking me a really long time to break through. So it's more than anything, I can be super focused on the business, but on the personal side, I just feel like I'm a little disconnected. So how would you suggest something in order for me to start like breaking through the personal side?
When do you feel there's the breakdown on the personal side? Is it when you get home at the end of the day, when you wake up? When are you feeling that there's a disconnect?
I just feel like I'm super focused on the business only.
Okay,
Mhm.
So can I say something very direct and emotional?
Yes.
So you've heard me speak before. We've spent time together. I definitely love the action that you've taken from a business standpoint, the example that you set. And I know you're a wonderful mother because I hear from Brett. So I want to frame this the right way. But when my mother was sick and coming to the dinner table every single night with 24-hour nursing care in our house to ask me how my day was at school, I have no memories about what she was doing for a living at that period of time. My mother was a teacher and a giver, but my point is, I remembered my mom's smile and asking me how my day was at school and the focus. And now when I look back on my life, it's like these two little eyes were watching everything that she did. And now what I remember, and you don't think of this as a 7-year-old boy when you lose your mother, but it's like, oh my gosh, my mom literally came to the dinner table every night to ask me how my day was at school. And so you're going through some tough times right now in the business, but when you walk in that door, maybe it's a little statement that you tell yourself, like, my real work starts now. Those eyes are watching me. And just be a little more intentional. And look, it's hard for all of us, right? I mean, I'm not perfect with this. There's times where with my kids, it's, you get to listening and then all of a sudden you get a little bit distracted and it's like, oh my gosh, buddy, I'm so sorry. Do you mind saying that again? And I could see like, it hurts what do you mean I got to say it again, Dad? And so we all do these things, but during times like this, I just encourage you, maybe it's something like, don't forget the most important part of your day starts right now because those eyes are watching you. So you got to try something that you say that triggers that change in your mind and your focus. If that doesn't work, you got to shift it to something else. But something tells me that if you do that and you just put that reminder, like those little eyes are going to remember not what I did at work today. They're going to remember how I made them feel tonight. I think your focus will change with your kids.
Okay. Really
Is that helpful?
it. Yes, a lot. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. One of my favorite men in the world. Love him like a brother. Great share.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, bro.
I do have how did you know that I wanted to say something? That's wild. I didn't raise
my
hand.
You got that look in your eye.
Well, I just think this conversation's very timely. I happen to be speaking to an employee of our company today who I know is going through really, really hard times. Husband left her, brother had a stroke. She's in an operational position where she's fearing every time the phone rings. Like when I called her, she's like, oh no, is this the day that I'm going to be let go? And I could tell she was really holding on and struggling. And I can't quite say it like you, Ben, because I don't have the experience. And I'm not an expert at it, but I said some of the similar things that you're saying, which is every day is a new opportunity for you to do it better than yesterday. And you don't have to do it all today. You can do one little step at a time. And to me, working out is very important, but eating right is even more important, because if you're working out so you can eat like crap, it doesn't do anything for you. If you wake up every day realizing this is an opportunity for me to just take one more step forward, then you put 3 or 4 of those days together and all of a sudden you've got some real momentum. And so it reminded, I told her this, and then I thought to myself, man, take your own advice. And so this is all kind of tying together for me. And I just wanted to thank you for, allowing this platform, inviting me, Brett. I really have a lot of respect for you, Brett. You're always through ups and downs, always reaching for the stars. And what impresses me most about you and what we can all learn from you, I think, is you get up off the mat as fast as anyone I've ever met. Really, like something hits you and you're just figuring out another way to do it or another approach to getting through it. And in particular, with some of the relationships in your life, which I think we can all learn a lesson here. You have challenges and you really try and peel back to understand the emotions of the person on the other side and what's involved and what's the best way to tackle this so there can be a positive income. And I just really appreciate that about you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, brother. Good. Let's
we
hear from the Paisano boys. Sorry.
Just real quick, those are amazing thoughts, Greg and Brett. I hope you soak that in. And I know, Brett doesn't do this, to generate more business. He wants to give back, but these are the times, whether it's Brett, whether it's Greg, whether it's Belen, lean on each other. There's people who care, and you guys are going through the same thing. Like, don't try to go through this alone. There's a lot of people, and it's one of the things that I love about this platform that Brett's creating. I promise you, my coaching rates are not the cheapest in the industry. So Brett's providing for all of you an opportunity for us to do this. And, a lot of people, they're fearful of, well, coaching costs this and times are tough. Like, coach each other. How about the type of accountability and Greg saying this relationship with Brett? It's not like he's like, Brett's my coach, but there's probably periods of time he's giving you some advice and he's like, man, Brett's coaching me up. Thanks for getting me through that. So a lot of you don't try to do this alone.
Greg all the time. Yeah, I call Greg all the time for advice. Yesterday, shit.
I mean, I think it goes both ways. Like, Brett works at a competitor mortgage company.
Right.
Like his company's taken people from us before, and but you got to go deep with all your relationships and make sure the ones you have are meaningful, right? I remind myself of that all the day and every day. And Brett brings value to my life. I don't care where he works or what he does, because I know he truly cares. And if I just have 5 people in my life like Brett, man, I've hit the holy grail. So I really love you, Brett. You know that.
Love you too, buddy.
Just to reiterate,
that's awesome. Thanks,
just a special human, and that's all.
Thanks, bro.
Yep.
Ooh. Paisano, Raul, looking all thin. Oof.
What's up, guys? First of all, thank you, Ben, for everything. I mean, this is the 3rd time we've done this Zoom call, and I think every time it really does add more fire to the fuel, more fuel to the fire for us. And then, just to tag on to what Greg was saying, Brett, dude, you're awesome, man. You definitely, you care, and that's something that, when I'm with you, we hang out, but a lot of times when you give me advice, I know it's from the heart. So that really means a lot to me, means a lot to us, my brothers. So thank you guys for everything you guys do for us. For us, I mean, I don't really have a question prepared, but I think, one big change that's happened for us recently has been, working together, really working together. We have agents that are brand new. We have agents that have been doing this for a long time. So I think it's really important, and a lot of what you touch on, Ben, is leading from the front, leading from example, being the example for the team. That's been huge for us. I actually, last night, I listened to a podcast, Andy Frisella, and you were on there, Ben, and it was one of the episodes was I think it was how do you lead your team, and it was that was the big thing that you were touching on was leading by example. You can't really tell somebody to do something or instruct somebody to do something if you're not doing it your own. So I think it's really just it's definitely helping others, but it's also keeping you accountable and making sure you're in line. So again, thank you guys for everything you do. I don't have a question. I don't know, Dad, if you have a question or anybody has a question right now.
I don't have. I mean, one thing that I've known Brett for probably 15, 20 years, Brett, and
Yeah,
and we, in all honesty, we haven't done as many deals together over the years as we probably should have, right? I mean, we probably do maybe 10 or so deals a year, maybe 10, 15 deals a year or something like that. So we don't really do, we're starting to do more and more, which is great. I mean, you have a great team. The fact that that you care about the people that you know, like you're more of a friend to us than a lender, if you know what I mean. I mean,
Sure.
you know,
I don't know if you remember the first time I think I ever sat down with you in person. It was probably 15 years ago, and you didn't know me from Adam. You know, I walked into the office and you asked me if I would like to be fed, and I'm like, of course, I love food. What do you guys have? And Lucy had made mole that day, which is about my most favorite thing in the world, and we sat there and had a home cooked meal together. And I'll never forget that. So we are like family, you know. It goes, yeah, it's one of my fondest memories from me getting my start, and you know, you guys helped with that all those years ago, and you know, I don't take any of that for granted.
no, that's awesome. I mean, and we do look at, you know, like I said, we do consider you a very good friend, one of our best friends in business, without a question. I mean, this events that you put together, these are awesome. I mean, I know many of the attendees here. I've known them for many years, and this is like it's great. How can I say it? It's like the perfect way to keep people engaged. I mean, like, you know, like myself, you know, I've been doing this for a long time. I started in sales back when I was like 12 years old in Mexico. I used to sell pine sol and bleach door by door on payment plans, man. You know, that's where my sales career started. So I know it's challenging. It could be challenging. There are, you know, it comes more naturally to some of us, and it's harder for some of us as well. You know, and
Sure.
We just have to stay engaged. We have to, you know, I mean, keep doing, be persistent, and keep going at it. Like, I mean, I've known Belen for 15, 20 years as well. I could have told you 20 years ago when I met her that she was gonna kick ass in this business. You know, and on the same token, there are some other people that, you know, like I need some help in some aspects per se. I could be way more organized in some ways, you know. I could work in some, I could do way better in some things, but I'm great in others. So, I mean, this kind of podcast or events really make you emphasize and really make you look at things from different angles. And it really makes a big difference. I mean, you know, you take one golden nugget from each one of these events, like, you know, and it makes a big difference. That's all I'm looking for. Just one big thing, one big takeaway from this. So thank you guys for putting this together. Ben, you're awesome, dude.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Excellent.
All right, Brett.
Excellent. Yeah.
Brett, yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to go through one more. My dear friend Jorge Armstrong. Haven't heard from him in a while.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Ben, for having us.
Hey, good to see you, buddy.
Love it. Same, man. Same. To me, the aha was like when you put the example of feeling your shoes with your toes. You have them, like that part of being aware or present at what you're doing versus just doing it to say you did it. And it captured me. I even wrote it down. I'm like, yeah, like just don't do it just to go through the emotions. Just really put intention into it and being aware of it.
Makes
Brian,
a lot of
good
sense.
to see you too, man.
Good to see you.
Awesome, Ben.
All right, let me wrap this up and bring it home, and then I'll turn it back over to Brett. I am going to send the link to this podcast that I referenced with Andrew Huberman, so you all have an opportunity to listen to it and have takeaways like I had as well, and get to hear some of the things that I said, but coming from him. And then I'm also going to send that video. Some of you, I've sent it to you. Maybe you've watched it or you haven't. I'm going to send it again. I just encourage you, the burn and the prize fighter day. Those will help you create those standards. I wanted to finish with this. Brett stole a little bit of my thunder talking about participation trophies at the beginning of the call. And I was watching the women's NCAA championship basketball game, Iowa versus LSU. And Jill Biden, you know, obviously the wife of President Joe Biden, was at the game, and Iowa loses the game to LSU. And at the end of the game, Jill Biden says, I'm going to invite the Iowa Hawkeyes basketball team and LSU to the White House. And I'm sitting here listening to this. I'm like, what in the hell is going on in this country? I'm 44 years old. I've been watching sports my entire life. I have never in 44 years heard of the losing team going to the White House. The best team, the winning team, the championship team goes to the White House. Are we literally letting the losing team now get what the winners get? I could not believe what I was hearing. I mean, I couldn't stop thinking. I'm just like, what is going on in this world? Enough with the participation trophies. We have to learn to go through pain. We have to learn how to respond to winning. We have to learn it all. That's when we become our best. And thank goodness the next day, Caitlin Clark, the star player for Iowa, I actually got to watch it live. And so I'm watching this interview and she's like, well, we greatly appreciate the invitation from Jill Biden, but that's for the winners, and LSU should go and enjoy that experience for themselves, but we're not going to go to the White House. We'll let LSU. If we won, we would have gone to the White House. And then Lisa Bluter, the head coach for Iowa, she comes out and says, really grateful for the invitation, but we're not going to be going to the White House. However, Jill Biden, you've got an invitation to come to Carver Hawkeye Arena to watch a basketball game whenever you want to. And I was like, oh, this just blew up right in her face. But how beautiful to not accept that invitation. And so when we hear that, it really does sound crazy. And I'm going to be really direct. And some of you might be like, oh my gosh, why did he have to kind of hit us between the eyes as we finish our time together today? If you don't believe that that was the right thing, giving a participation trophy for losing the basketball game, if in the history of the country, no sporting team has ever lost the game and gone to the White House, as crazy as that sounds to do that, then you as an individual have to make sure that every day you're not giving yourself a participation trophy. And I'm having far too many conversations with far too many people who say, well, interest rates are up. It's just hard to make it to the office. You get to the office, you push around some paper, you don't do anything that's activity related that's going to increase your pipeline or give anybody the opportunity to do business with you. And you give yourself a participation trophy and you tell yourself, at least I showed up today. That's not winning. I want you to get to the point where you say, regardless of what's going on, regardless of media, politics, where rates are, I'm going to shift my perspective and connect to my burn every day. I'm going to build out a prize fighter day and I'm going to live to my standards. I'm going to release that dopamine by doing the disciplines. And when I look myself in the mirror and you honestly say you gave it everything that you had that one day, go ahead and give yourself the trophy. But then don't be seduced by success and go do it the next day. When you do that, the results may not be the way they were 2 years ago, but I promise you when those rates go down, the results will be more than they were 2 years ago. And you'll do more right now than you're currently doing. I appreciate these opportunities to be with all of you. Brett, I love you. I love our friendship, our brotherhood. You mean so much to me. Katie, thank you for all you do to coordinate and make these things happen. And I appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys every quarter.
Awesome, Ben. Thanks again. Love doing these. We'll do it next quarter. We're slowly sending out some content on that now, get people signed up. Reach out to me, guys. You got anyone on this call, you guys know I'm an open book. Anyone needs anything, business, personal, whatever. I mean, we got competitors on here. We got agents I've worked with for 20 years on here. Brian Pintar. We got, it's an eclectic group, but everyone on this call means something to me. So stay close, guys. All right. Love you guys.
Thanks, guys.